think the phenomenon of Bay Area hip hop and Bay Area music scene is something that you can trace back to the 50s. We had this area called 7th Street in West Oakland. 7th Street had all the blues clubs. At that time, blues was black music, whatever, you know. It was what ended up becoming rock and roll, what ended up becoming R&B. So they had a world famous area called 7th Street that everybody, and this is the same story as like in every single town that had black folks. But so 7th Street was there, and there were people like Big Mama Thornton. Big Mama Thornton wrote You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog, which then got redone by Elvis Presley, even though he didn't know what it meant, and called her up and asked her what it meant after it made a whole bunch of money off of it. You know, there was that whole scene of musicians that then spilled over into the 60s when there was a lot of political movement going on. And Sly and the Family Stone, which was basically like, they were the Michael Jackson of the time. They were known all over the world, and their sound was so different that it influenced so many people. Sly and Family Stone came out, and Stevie Wonder changed his style. Larry Graham broke off from that, and you could hear in that Larry Graham stuff, later stuff that Stevie was doing. I'm not saying Stevie isn't a genius, but I'm saying like it set a new agenda, and that agenda had to do with the dirt, the non-refinement, the assimilation of certain sounds that was going on in black music at the time. All of a sudden, people started using string sections, and the person that did it well would be like Curtis Mayfield. But at the time, that was kind of like, you see later on in the 60s when like string sections started coming out, it was kind of like making this with black music, saying, oh, we've made it. Civil rights movement is over. Everything's good. You know, ain't no stopping us now. You know, that sort of shit, which was not like, ain't no stopping us now, we're gonna fight. Ain't no stopping us now, we done did it. We're here. That was the beginning of that in the 60s on one part of that movement, which was, you know, to have these lush arrangements that were bigger than what people can do in their house or in a bar, and were before that thought of as white pop music. Sly came out with this sound that was way dirtier than even what Stax Records was putting out, which was like supposedly the counter to Motown. It also, though, was incorporating stuff that was now considered rock. In a way, he was just playing hard and dirty blues and funky and danceable.
Because of a lack of history, understanding of history, they find themselves repeating steps that have already been taken when all they have to do was pivot from what Dr. King already did.
Any obstacle or any form of adversity is gonna make you a better person when you come out of it on the other side. You're not gonna wanna hear that at the front of it.
Everybody should always aspire to be the person that they're not, and do what it takes to become that person.
There's madness and miseducation. When you're telling somebody half of the story and you're lying to black kids about who they are, you're not telling them, you know, that they would come from kings and queens.